Hi, welcome to Code Speaks, a series of pre-hack sessions with leading industrial experts. Today's event is Code Speaks with Saiman Shetty, sir. This event is brought to you by SIAM-VIT. The Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics, or SIAM, is an international chapter with a populace of more than 14,000 individuals across the globe. It has presence only in 5 colleges in the country, with VIT being the only private institution in this elite group. Our objective is to advance the applications of mathematics and computational science in engineering, industry, science, and society. Our hackathon, Hackulus, is a 24-hour hack which will be held on 9th and 10th of April. And we have a ton of amazing prizes, cash prizes, internship offers, giveaways. For more details, you can check out our website. The description is given below. So before we get started, keep looking out for giveaway questions that might appear on your screen somewhere here or there. So, or right at the bottom. So now the moment you've been waiting for. We would like to welcome our guest speaker of the day, Saiman Shetty, sir. So, sir does not need an introduction, but we're still going to give a small, brief introduction. Saiman Shetty, sir, is presently the Technical Program Manager Robotics at Neuro. He's an ex-Tesla and Lyft engineer, and he is also the co-founder of Resume Puppy. And that's not all. Sir is also the recipient and mentor of the EB-1A Einstein Visa. So how are you today, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good, sir. So should we start with the questions?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, so we have a bunch of motivated kids who had a lot of questions. We'll start off with the very basic. So how did you get interested in AI? As in, what motivated you to go into the AI and robotics industry? What made you want to go into it?
So the when I was looking at when I looked at technologies or like landscapes that changed the way we do things in the past, right? For example, there's one milestone, which was the internet. The invention of the creation of the internet changed the way we do things, and before that it was
Right.
the invention of computers, right? And before that it was the invention of the transistor, and before that it was probably like air travel and all of these things, right? Like automotive. So if you look at this progression, there are inflection points once in a while there are inflection points where you can be a part of the next big sort of wave that has a leveraged impact on a lot of people in general, right? And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I saw robotics as that wave, and one application of robotics happens to be self-driving, right? But then there can be a ton of applications. I think there are a number of applications in robotics. It just blows the number of applications of things on the internet away, because now you have like the physical world that you can apply things in, and I found that's really interesting. I always live at the bridge of hardware and software, and this is really really interesting, to go into and deliver impact. So that's the reason I've always been interested in doing something in the robotic space.
Right, sir. Sir, was there anyone who influenced you to join the industry, or did you have any ideal, like somebody who you probably looked up to before you got into robotics? Like a lot of students who start AI look up to Andrew Ng. So, like, he's one of the ideals. Was there any ideal for you?
Not specifically, but I think working at Tesla and getting inspired by Musk and all, every pretty much everyone at Tesla are very driven and are very they know why they are there, and they know what they're doing, and why they are doing it. And at the end of the day, it's about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable transport, sustainable energy. And
Right, sir.
being in such a driven place did give me a good inspiration on how things are done, how to get things done, and why do this in the first place.
Right. So we have a lot of budding engineers in the chat and in this session. So how would you suggest a young engineer to sort of become a data scientist or become a robot engineer? Like, what are the steps that you went through to be where you are right now? And what about the people who are not exactly from the CSIT backgrounds in their educational background? Like, how could they start and end up becoming data scientists or probably get into robotics?
So the the biggest misconception here is that you need to be a data scientist or a robotics engineer or a CS person to get into robotics. That's the biggest misconception. That's like pretty much saying uh, e- everyone who builds the house should be an electrical engineer, right? That's like saying that this
Right,
is a
right.
field, yeah, this is a field which needs a ton of different diverse talent. And no matter what you are good at, right, like be it a mechanical engineer, or an electrical engineer, or a computer science person, or a data scientist, or data science person, or be it even civil engineer, right? Like you have the whole field of robotics uh, brings what you work on into a physical realization, and that's why there's a lot more diverse talent required in robotics. It is not that you specialize in data science and then you go into robotics and you're going it's the robotics does need data scientists, but it needs a lot more other people than data scientists. So
Right, right.
I think whatever you are pursuing out of passion, and pursuing out of genuine interest, right? Like be it a mechanical, be it you are probably a mechanical engineer, or an electrical engineer, or you like to specialize in VLSI, or whatever it is. Uh, you should find a way to apply that to some robotic application, right? In its own way. And I think that is important than rushing into data science to get into robotics, or rushing into data science to get into AI.
Right, sir. So, what was your first step? Like when you started into robotics, I'm sure you must have had a journey through it, right? So, what was the first thing that you came across which made you want to go into robotics? Like, what is the first step that you took, which probably these young engineers who are watching this would go through?
So my motivation to go into robotics was mainly, I knew that I knew that I liked control systems, and that's
Right, sir.
because it's at that border of pure math and science to and engineering. So you can pure controls is kind of it's interesting because you find levers in nature to pull and you get a certain result, right? And that thing you can apply anywhere. You can apply in Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I think your video lagged a bit.
Okay, so
Never
yeah,
mind, never mind. We
let me
can go
repeat.
over it again.
Yeah, let me repeat that sentence. So for me it was like I looked at control systems, and everywhere that it is applied, so it's applied in robotics, it's applied in aerospace, it's applied it's even applied in non-technical applications, right? Like Wall Street, like the financial side of Wall Street. It's also applied in fisheries to control the number of fish in a fishery. and all that. So the whole mathematical modeling of a system, looking at a system behavior, and understanding that and then applying controls to it was really fascinating to me. So that's why I decided to enter into controls, right? And the application
Right.
that I decided to ended up entering into happened to be in the industrial automation and controls industry. And that gradually evolved to, okay, so now what am I working on? I found myself working on self-driving cars, and I'm like, okay, what other impact can I deliver? And then it happened to be, okay, so the product is like super interesting to work on, and it's a super interesting concept where you get a car to self-drive, right? And you have to meet all these safety parameters and stuff like that. So that got me interested in okay, how can I expand my scope to be more impactful? And that's where one thing led to the other, and I ended up working on the whole self-driving or robotic product. That transition was super organic. It was not necessarily, okay, I wake up one day and decide to get into robotics or self-driving. Yeah.
Right. So, sir, going on what you just said, all of us would like to know which area in AI or robotics do you specialize? Like, what's the niche area which you work on?
So I am a majorly a hardware person. So
Right, right.
I specialize in the computation and anything in the vehicle that does computation.
Okay. So you've been in the industry for quite some time now. Which specific domain excites you the most? And for us engineers, sir, what is the next wave as you mentioned earlier, right? There was internet, then there were cars, and then there was planes and air travel and whatnot. So what is the current new wave, and what do we expect in the next 10 years? What is the market going to lean towards, and what is the market expecting out of us engineers? And yes, obviously your favorite domain inside the new industry.
I think a, I think a lot of companies and systems and processes will become very, very data driven.
Right.
And that means there are a lot more people coming on the internet. There are a lot more people sharing data on the internet, and there's things you have to do with this data. And that's where data science, um, as a field, I think will continue to improve or expand. Right.
Right.
Um, that's one, definitely. um, but that's not it, right? Like, even if you are any sort of hardware or uh, any specialization, basically you can apply that to something someone is doing in the field of robotics and AI in general. So I am super interested in robots because this will help us unlock. So if we think we are saturated as humanity in doing a bunch of things, the whole advent of robotics will unlock what we are able to do as humanity and take it to the next level. For example, uh, there's space travel, right? Like, space
Yes,
travel
sir.
got saturated to a point where we stopped sending people to space frequently, when there was a time when we sent people to the moon, right? So you need a disruptor in that space to unlock that next level, to create those next generation of spacecraft that can go into the stars and beyond, right? And once that happens, then you open up a lot of other opportunities, even in outer space, for people to go and maybe someday set up businesses, a whole new world to build, literally, from everything that we've learned in this world, right? And that's really exciting, I think. uh,
Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, to answer your question about like waves that you can be part of course, space is getting big. Even in India, every other day I see like some space startup trying to do something. It's super exciting, super new.
Yes, sir.
uh, then there's obviously the whole data AI thing. Then I am a big fan of robotics. So all these are the next level of humanity that is unlocked, that you should be a part of.
Right, sir. Right. Um, so, sir, we've covered that. Now, there is a common notion which is developing that the industry is now becoming more research oriented, as in there the companies are now picking up more research or PhD scholars rather than direct master's student. Is there a change in the way industry is now hiring? Or do you feel that being a part of the industry, do you feel it's becoming more research based?
Not entirely, but a large portion of it is becoming research based, and industry is taking on research candidates for a reason, right? Because they are trying to
Yes, sir.
explore the new. And I don't know why. Maybe it is because they want to keep tighter control of the research that's going on, versus in the past where there's more of this academia collaboration, where a professor gets the research project and then the students work on it and stuff like that. So I don't
Right,
know
right.
why it is shifting to a model where the industries take up research on their own in a more rigorous manner. Maybe it's because they want to maintain more control. Maybe it's because they found the old system more inefficient. I don't know, but it is true. And the main, and rightfully so in some regards, I think, because when you're trying to push the boundaries of what we have discovered and invented, then you need to be the person researching on that next thing, right?
Right, right.
To unlock your own potential to do more. So it is only right that it's happening, but it also matters that we look at it as one step in the whole evolution, and not necessarily like super traditional research where there's like very you know pure stuff happening, and then someone has to do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
changes to apply it to something.
It's more like commercialization of research, I think. Now it's not just to find the meaning of true science, it's becoming how we can capitalize on it and make more of it, if I'm right.
It is essential, right? Because you have research going on, and if you have a clear if you can derive very clearly from day zero how you will apply that research and why that research is important you know on a product, or at the end of the day,
Hmm.
it is important because that gives meaning and application to everything that you're researching on. So it's only a healthy environment to research in, I think.
All right, all right. So we'll go to the next part. Now a little more about your project, sir. We would love to know any of the projects you've worked on and what is your particular favorite project that you've worked up till now, or probably some other project that you've seen in the industry. You were really interested about it. Our audience really would love to know about it.
Um, so ever since undergrad, the one thing I used to keep myself busy in was in the lab doing stuff, right? So
Right.
the first major kind of project that I worked on was the Tesla coil back in undergrad. So I built a Tesla coil from scratch, and it was a very interesting journey because it involved innovative thinking around what do we need to do to bring the cost down, right? So we didn't
Right.
have like 10,000 or 20,000 rupees to spend back then on a few capacitors, right? So how do you put something together that gets the work done, at the same time, is very innovative and unblocks you. So what we did was we got a bunch of empty beer bottles and
Okay.
filled it
Now it's
with,
getting interesting.
yeah, uh, yeah, and filled it with salt water with brine, right? And
Right.
wrapped it with aluminum foil. So
Okay.
technically, the like, what is a capacitor, right? If you go back to first principles, a capacitor is uh, essentially a dielectric and two conductors, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
the salt acted as one conductor, the salt water acted as one conductor, the aluminum foil as another, and the glass is the dielectric, right? Now, yeah, there
Right.
were a lot of like the discharges and things like that, janky stuff going on. You cannot get the capacitance calculation of that right. Obviously, you don't know like what potential difference will it actually short circuit, and you don't know that. But and you end up shocking yourself a lot of times. But at the end of the day, it got the work done, and
Right.
in a very price efficient manner, and we saw what we wanted to see. We saw the result, right?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
that's not a super safe way to do stuff, so I don't recommend doing this. But that taught me that you don't necessarily need to uh, innovation can, that thought process, that mentality of thinking about things a certain way can happen anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an interesting conversation over beer, I'm assuming. And that's how it must have probably led to it. All
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So, one interesting fact, we're not allowed alcohol inside our campus. So, for all
Yeah, that's
purposes,
that's why that's why you have to
yeah,
empty it before bringing in. Yeah.
exactly. So,
It's
yes.
it's not the beer that does the magic, it's the bottles that do the magic.
Exactly, sir. Right. So now we'll come to your experience at Tesla. So how was your experience in Tesla, and what propelled you to start your own company? As in, where did you get the inspiration to sort of go ahead and start something new on your own? Did you feel it was too saturated back at Tesla, or what motivated you to move ahead and leave it behind?
Uh so when you Tesla is an amazing place, and I think it really taught me like what it is to be working on a mission and making things happen, right? uh,
Right,
but in any company at any given point, you reach those points where you start asking, can I do more from a grounds up level? Because in that company you reach a certain abstraction, and then you work from that abstraction, right? So I was asking myself, is this it, or is there a place I can go to where I can take everything that I've learned here, and every sort of skill that I have developed here,
hmm,
and apply it there and be more impactful from a grounds up level, right? So a company is, I know a lot of us consider companies as this holy grail of our career and things like that. But technically, a company is
right,
a vehicle for you to express your skill and make it useful to the world. Because you alone can, it's very unlikely that it's very less likely that you can make your skill in itself useful to the world directly, right? It has to flow into some sort of product or service, and that service or product, in order to be complete, will need a lot more other skills to flow into it, right? And you're
right,
using
right.
the company as a vehicle to express your skill into something that is out there in the real world. So at points I started asking myself, is there more impact that I can deliver, right, from everything that I've learned? And the answer was yes. So that's why I wanted to be, I wanted to get involved in more grounds up things, and wanted to learn more in that direction. And that's what prompted me.
All right, all right. You were living the dream, I think, learning from a company and then starting your own. So, what were the key things that you learned at Tesla which weren't available to you earlier? Like, what sort of an environment was there, and what are the new things which you got to know because of Tesla being in an environment like that, being around people who were like-minded? Probably you would have noticed some things which were different, right? And there must have been something to take back.
Yeah. One thing I definitely took back was a no nonsense attitude towards getting things done, right? And it doesn't mean that the entire company is it's because it has very strong fundamental principles that lead the company, right? Like, for
Right,
example,
right,
uh, it is very clear why Tesla even exists, right? And the mission statement says it is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. What does that mean? Does that mean like it's like any other company that Tesla motivates to shift towards sustainable energy or electric transport and that kind of thing, is Tesla's own success, right? The goal is to uh, move the world towards a sustainable future, and that is an audacious goal that is
Mhm.
beyond just me, beyond just Tesla, right? It is a goal that impacts several generations after us, even, right? So
Right,
that
right,
I think that is one thing, like being goal driven, knowing why you're doing something, not in the moment of what you're doing, not the next step. And that is pretty much always in an innovative environment, you won't know how to solve that specific problem in the specific next step that you're doing. But you know what the right thing is to do in the long term, and you stick to
right,
that
right.
point, right? And I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Okay. So how did you come up with Resume Puppy, and how was the process for that like?
Yeah, so Resume Puppy is an so my co-founder Anish Hegde, I know him since undergrad. We went to undergrad together. He came to the US with a lot of experience in app development, and his apps got downloaded like 150,000 times and stuff like that, back when he was in India. And he came to the US, did his masters, and with all the experience he brought, it should technically have been easy for him to get an internship. All right, but what happened was, there was this resume, there's the skill, there's all that awesome skill that you apply, and then there's your resume, and then and then there's the job, right? And then in between the job and your skills, there's the resume. So if you do all the great work, but if you don't know how to make a compelling resume, then that's a pinch point, that's a bottleneck, right? And we didn't want that to be a bottleneck. We wanted to make sure that everyone who does great work, they shouldn't have to worry about making a resume. This skill of making a resume should be irrelevant in the grand scheme of things of them, a skilled person getting a job. So we are like, okay, what are the things in on a resume that we unnecessarily get wrong, and we can build a product that doesn't that helps people to get it right. And one of the things is uh, of course, the format. There's the format of the resume that we were like, okay, we got to cut down all this nonsense. So we built Resume Puppy just to cater to like one format, because we know it works. We've tested it. It works. If and so that you can bring all your awesome work in and create really good content, and then be off applying, right? So, and our vision with Resume Puppy is to make sure that you spend the least amount of time making your resume, because you've got better things to do.
Right. So
Yeah.
now since you've mentioned it, I've been itching to ask you, is he the same beer buddy which you had found in college, or is he
No.
a different friend?
By the way, I didn't used to drink in college. It's ironic, but it's true.
Okay. And so
So
what are the common what sorry, yes, sir, go ahead.
no, yeah, that's basically all those beer bottles were stuff that friends collected and they wanted to get rid of. So I ended up
Okay.
being the person that ended up getting all those.
Okay. So sir, one more thing, what since you've mentioned resumes, I'd love to ask you, you must have obviously noticed a lot of common errors and mistakes which people make, right? So, right now in this group, I think the live session, a lot of viewers would be interested in knowing what are the common errors people make. Like, what are the basic things they can look at and improve their basic CV or resume?
the I think the biggest mistake is spending time on unnecessary things like format, right? Format is important, but beyond a certain point, the format doesn't fetch you anything. It is what you put on there and how you describe what you've done, and things like that, right? So I think paying attention on that is super essential. The other thing is uh, you should show evidence of your impact. It should be okay. I What did you solve and how and what happened. uh, so I think think of it like a brochure, right? Like you look at a brochure of a restaurant somebody handed over to you. How do you even decide if you want to take the first step with that restaurant or not, right? And you look at what it communicates. You look at the value it delivers to you. Probably a restaurant is more of a wrong example. Probably, some sort of service that you get. You look at an ad, and how do
Right,
you decide, do you sign up or not, right? And think of your
right,
resume
right,
as that for another person who doesn't know you, right? And you have to walk them through exactly things that you did that are relevant to them, which you can there are techniques of doing that, which I won't go into now because we built a whole product just for that. But
right.
yeah, I think you should definitely check out Resume Puppy. And I know I didn't mention this, but for everyone on this live stream, we'd like to offer 2 weeks of Resume Puppy Premium free. So I'll share a link in a bit, and you can go fill that link, and we'll give you 2 weeks of Resume Puppy Premium. That's a top tier plan, free, so you can try
Also,
it
guys,
out.
if you haven't noticed, we've been giving a giveaway question right below in the banner. So if you guys haven't answered already, please do answer. We'll have a winner and we'll announce them shortly. All right, sir. So we'll go to the next part. So you transitioned from India to US, right? You did your masters from Arizona. So did you always know that yes, you'll go for masters abroad? Was that always a plan for you? Or was it a spur of the moment thing? How did you sort of decide on that? Because there are a lot of people here who would like to know what the process is like and what the process was like for you. How did you come to making a decision that yes, I want to pursue my studies here? And what is the format for the same?
uh, from a standpoint of pursuing studies abroad, the decision for me was because I wanted to experience diversity, and I wanted to. I mean, basically, I started asking. The question I started asking was, "Is this it, or is there more?" Right? And I think if you want to pursue a higher education, it is good to have a baseline around like what you would like to end up doing. Not exactly because
Right,
you all pretty much always end up doing things that are broader than what you thought you would do, for the most part. But it's good to understand why you need to even go abroad to do that, right? Would it be because there's some cutting edge technology that is available abroad, that you do not have access to in India? Or and if it's the financial side of things, that's also okay. But you should be conscious of why you are even doing that, right? So I think
right,
that's
right,
that's the main thing. So and for me it was mainly because I wanted to be part of this wave of robotic self-driving, probably even aerospace, and that's why I decided to go abroad, because that's where things were on their cutting edge, right? But if you are, let's say, you want to do something in SaaS, I think there are a ton of awesome SaaS companies in India that the West is using, right?
Oh,
And
all right.
yeah, so for example, Zoho or Freshworks, all these
Right,
are Indian companies, and I often get like invoices and all of that from people that I work with here that are made on Freshworks, or that something is made using Zoho. And it
right,
took me
right,
a little bit of research to even know that all these things that these people are using are actually Indian SaaS companies.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll go to the next question. So how did you build your profile right from college that sort of qualified you for the Einstein visa? Because that only the very decorated and people get it who have a lot of accolades in their field. So was it always a plan to go for it, or did it just happen on its own?
Uh, the
Also, sir, we'd
I had
just like you if you could explain it to the audience once what an Einstein visa is.
So the US has a special category of green cards, uh, dedicated. It's called first preference green cards, right? Employment based
Right,
first
right.
preference green cards, and that is allocated to people who demonstrate extraordinary ability in the sciences or the business or arts or whatever it is, and they have a set of 10 criteria that address this. And I've built an entire course on this to
Okay.
educate people. So feel free to go to smartgreencard.com, and you'll be able to see that and learn more about it. But in general, the there are these guidelines set that say, okay, if you demonstrate a certain level of
Mhm.
extraordinary ability evidenced by these criteria, then you qualify, right? And then you can apply, and then it goes through a review and stuff like that. So in my case, what happened was, um, I never planned to necessarily go this route, but um,
Okay.
when you apply for like an H1B and things like that, that goes through a lottery, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and it's pretty random, because no matter the impactful work that you're doing, you still end up being at the mercy of a lottery, which kind of gets like a pinch point, uh,
Right.
in order to like continue what you're doing. So, and I was not lucky at that lottery. I failed at the lottery, at the H1B lottery. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I had to look at, okay, what everything that I have, and can I do more stuff that is of real impact, and get acclaim for doing that work in my field, in order to qualify for this Einstein visa, or there's another sort of non-immigrant classification of this same green card called the O1. So I was targeting, okay, how can I like build my profile with everything that I have to demonstrate my extraordinary ability and get this visa, right? And the O1 doesn't go through a lottery. The EB1 A, or the Einstein visa, is very quick. Like versus waiting, I don't know, I think people wait around 20-25 years for their green cards. Versus that, you get your Einstein visa or EB1A green card in 1, if not 2 years. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's very quick. It's a very quick path, and it requires you to demonstrate a high level of achievement and extraordinary ability. But if I think if you do the right legitimate work from earlier on, you build that body of work, right? You build all that evidence that you get, and then you have built your sort of profile in a deliberate but legitimate manner as well, and then you can use that to apply. So yeah, I mean, this is a super short version of the whole thing, and to in order to go into the whole thing, I have like a mini course and a full course put together that you can access at smartgreencard.com.
Okay. So we'll pick a few questions from the audience. So first question which somebody has written is, hi sir, do you recommend working for an organization before starting your own company?
It does help, because you end up learning from technically end up learning also from other people's mistakes, right?
Right,
And it's
right.
always good, because at that point you're not at a loss yourself. But then if you actually have an idea that with conviction, and it is by first principles sort of proven, right, that that idea is necessary and will work, then I don't think working for another company in a certain role should be should be blocking you from going into that idea and trying that idea out. I think you should go right ahead and do it.
Right, sir, right. Okay, so we have another question. Is it worth going for masters or should I take experience from placements?
I think this is answered in one of the previous questions, right? So it depends on
Right.
what you actually want to do. I got in through campus placements actually, but then that was my
Oh,
backup.
okay.
That was my backup option. My main my main path was to go do masters, because I wanted to, specialize in something. But um, my co-founder Anish, right, he took the other path, which is he worked for about 5 years in India, and then came to the US, and he's doing equally well too, right? So it's just that, where do you, at some point you will have to cross that curve of zero experience and trying to figure things out and understand things. The question is, at what point do you want to do it? So I
Right.
decided to do it right after college, so I can get that out of the way. And Yeah, I mean, that's it's more of a personal decision, I feel. But definitely coming here with experience does help. But then if you want to get into like robotics and self-driving, or whatever other area it might be, and your experience previous to that is in some other area, then that's not super helpful. So if you have, if you want to start working in something that is in your field of expertise, or where you want to be, right, then yeah, I
Right.
mean, that's a no-brainer, go for it. But then if it is more on the other side, then yeah, just become a specialist in that and start working.
So what I feel is that eventually everybody sort of ends up in the States, right? Um, and that sort of affects the hierarchy if you have done your masters or not, because in your resume, that is a checkbox which you haven't checked yet. So, in the hierarchy, would it actually make a difference? So, should one actually first go for masters and then look for experience?
So it depends on what companies you're targeting and where you want to get hired and stuff like that. For example, I do not, when I interview folks, or when I see people around me interview folks, for the most part, they don't care about what you studied or where you studied. They care about if you can get the job done. And if that
Oh,
is true,
okay.
you get hired, and rightfully so. Education is just something you do for you. It's not something that companies necessarily actively look for, especially the ones in Silicon Valley. But then I understand, in general, there's this whole societal construct of, hey, you need to have this and this, and then you
Right.
qualify and stuff like that. So definitely checking that box helps, but then I think having experience equally helps as well.
Okay. So there's this one more question from the chat. Um, can sir also answer how he entered DS domain? And also few tips for beginners in the domain, and I'm not that much into robots currently. Any such specific path I should follow or you could suggest in DS? Also, he's asked another question in the same. Also, DS is data science is a really vast domain. How did you stay energized? Like many times I get bored or lazy sometimes with all the maths it has, but the same thing becomes really interesting at other times. Both asked by Tanmay Vyas.
Okay, so first of all, I'm not a data scientist, so I don't I'm not a specialist in data science, right? But I do work with data scientists, and I do work with a lot of data in what I do in order to get things done, because I work on the application part of things, right? Like, my job is to make a robot. um, I think, literally yesterday, I was chatting with a data scientist, who works at IBM, and I'll be publishing. It's slightly off topic, but I'll be publishing a few podcast kind of things that I had in that chat, on my LinkedIn as well. So follow me on LinkedIn to get those updates. I think and the reason I'm saying is because that actually answers this question well. I'm not a data scientist, so I'm not proficient enough to answer this question. But in general, right, I think, the there is demand for data scientists, but then there is demand for good data scientists. It's not like, it's not like you just rush into data science just because people are rushing into data science. Pretty much the same thing happened in the whole software or IT services boom as well, right? Like, there are people
Right, right.
did civil or mechanical or biotech, and every unrelated thing end up becoming a computer science engineer, and then they don't know why they took up what and what they ended up becoming. Like, it's a total spaghetti of things, right? And
Right.
at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, are you actually impactful? And even in a financial sense, right? Like, could you have risen to the top of the field that you were in and delivered more impact and have that translated to more financial value for yourself? Or did this sort of shift and sway and changing of things just because there is demand in a certain area? Yes, there is demand, but then that also means everyone is running towards that. There is a lot of supply also, right? Like, for example, I
Right, sir.
decided deliberately to specialize in control systems. Control systems is one of the probably one of the worst specializations you can take up if you are planning to come to the US. And mainly, and I'm not telling this to discourage, I took up control systems, and I did just fine now. But then it's because, it's protected by a lot of export control regulations, and if you want to apply that in aerospace, or if you want to apply that in a lot of technologies that actually involve interesting applications of control systems, that is closed to people on a visa, right? It's only reserved for people with permanent, green cards or citizens and things like that. And that's rightfully so, because it has to do with national security, right?
Right.
And I didn't know this. I came,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I came specialized in control systems, and then I started realizing that, okay, so actually there's a lot of opportunities that's closed for me. A lot of other people who also did that, who also pursued control systems, ended up switching their majors into other things that had more demand and stuff like that. But then I was like, this is the one thing that I wanted to do, so I'm going to do it, and stuck to it. It was a bit of struggle, right? But then at the end of the day, if you push hard enough, you end up working in what you actually love working on and want to work on, and then you end up going that direction. So if you are I don't want anyone to get into data science just because there is demand. And if they are feeling fatigued or tired about data science, they should look at innovative ways to, like, apply data science, maybe like in robotics or self-driving, whatever it is, and come up with an interesting application, an impactful application of it. Or they should question, is that the field they want to be in the first place? Because this is the time you have. If you're in college, that's the time you have to question these things, and because that's when your mistake will come at zero cost, right?
Right.
It's not expensive. If you ask that question later in life, that becomes much more expensive.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense, sir. We have another question from the chat. From many seniors in college, I have heard there's very less scope of data science in India, as in there are very less entry-level jobs. Few words on this, please. From Tanmay Gas again.
I think i think that is wrong. uh, from a standpoint of data science, it's so, just imagine, where does data necessarily come from? It comes from humans for the most part, machines also, but then indirectly somewhere it's tied to humans, right? And in India, you have like 1/6 of the world's population, and
Right.
you have probably the fastest growing internet access in any country, that in any large country, right? You have cheap, very affordable data plans that help people to come on the internet in the first place. Look at this date, look at this trend. Literally, where is this going? This is going towards a lot more people coming on the internet, a lot more people gaining access, a lot
Hmm.
more people sharing data on the internet, that needs to get mined and that needs to get worked on to make it meaningful for certain purposes, right? So if this is the case, then it is only obvious from first principles that the scope for data science is going to improve, right? So I don't know, probably what your senior is telling you is that there are a lot of people coming into data science, so it gets competitive, and that is true. You need to be a pretty good data scientist in order to make it. Like, for example, why are people not going into Android dev, or why are people not going into like developing
Web app. Hmm.
yeah, or full stack or things like that. So you should look at this as an opportunity where there's a lot of people swinging towards a certain. Now it is data science. 5 years ago it was like CS and software engineering and that kind of thing, right? So there are a lot of
Right,
people swinging
right,
towards these. That is an opportunity for you to look at something where there is a shortage of people, because you will always be respected there. You will not be a commodity product that anyone can pick from. You'll be respected in that small space. Like, for example, my co-founder Anish, again, right? And I'm using him as an example here because he took the right, so he became an Android developer. And in our chats I hear that there is so much shortage of people in Android development, because just because it's not the sexy thing, people don't go into it. And people end up going into like ML and data science and all of these things, which is great. Do it if that's what you really are passionate about and want to do. But then otherwise you should look for these leverage points and opportunities where you can be a expert in a small group of people, where you will be respected and you will be sought after. Yeah.
right. So I'll just pick up from what you mentioned. Could you let us know what are the dying fields now? Like web dev is, as you mentioned, like full stack developers are not there anymore, and it wouldn't be used a lot. And what are the fields which were popular and now no longer? Because I feel India is still a few years behind the States, and we're still taking time to cope up with what they're doing. So you being there, what is your opinion on this, and what are the dying technologies which we should not now focus on, and what, like, we know ML and data science is there, but what all should we not go for?
I think anything that has in the long term to do with the um, combustible engines, or petroleum based vehicles.
Right.
I don't think. I mean, it's probably fine, right? It's probably fine for the amount of time you will be working in your life. But do you
Right.
want to be part of something that is decaying, or do you want to be part of the next inflection point, uh, that
Exactly.
humanity is
Exactly.
seeing, right? So definitely, that's you look at things that are dying away. There's like self drive. Um, there's vehicles that operate off of fossil fuel that are in the decline, but at the same time there's electric vehicles that are going up, right? So clearly where to be what to be a part of. And like, as far as like technicalities is concerned, there's like different languages that come up, different ways of harnessing data and manipulating data and things like that come up. I'm not going to go into like the technicalities of what language to learn and not, but you should
Right.
watch. I mean, it's easy. Now, in the age of internet, you can get really easy access to a lot of vlogs, a lot of like online content that tells you exactly what people are using. And connect with people on LinkedIn, right? Connect with people who are working in these cutting edge companies on LinkedIn, and then ask them, what is the next thing, what is happening? Because I see a lot of people connecting with me on LinkedIn, and their sole message is, "Hey, can you get me a job, or can you get me that or this?" Right? So instead of that, and I understand their standpoint. At that point of time, they are very sort of desperate to get a job and things like that. But then my point here is, start early, and then start talking to them about something they are passionate about and doing, right? Like, okay, you're working on this and this. Where do you think this is going? What languages do you use, or what technology stack do you use? And like, what advice do you think, what do you think I should invest my time in? Because they'll be working on the cutting edge, and they'll know what to direct you to.
Right. And so what do you direct us to?
From an application standpoint, I think that like robotics and self-driving is going to be the thing. Electric vehicles is going to be the thing. So I think if you are a mechanical engineer, let's say, you have to focus on ways where you can apply your skills in electric vehicles. And there is this false notion, and I have relatives too who are mechanical engineers. So there's this false notion that if you are a mechanical engineer, then in order to work on self-driving vehicles or electric vehicles, you have to be an electrical engineer. No, if you are a mechanical engineer, everything else on an electric vehicle is pretty much the same in function, right? But
Right,
the
right, correct,
whole drivetrain is not dirty, and it doesn't operate off of burning fossil fuels. So if you
correct,
are
correct.
working on things in an automotive segment that is to do with how do you design internal combustion engines or things like that, then yes, you have to think about your future in that. But if you work
Right.
on, let's say, better ways of suspension or better aerodynamics to the vehicle, this is necessary regardless. This is necessary if it's like electric or gasoline, and
Correct,
I
correct.
should probably be fine. Yeah.
Okay, there's one more question. So what is the future of computer vision and neural networks?
I so given that there's robotics and self-driving taking center place in a lot of things, computer vision is necessary to perceive the world around you. So there's I think these are interrelated topics, so I'm just going to talk about computer vision. So there are like three things in general that happen in robotics and self-driving, right? You perceive the world, then you decide what to do, and then you do it, right?
Right,
And
sir.
to do these three things, you will need a variety of talent. To do things, you need to the last step actually needs you to work to have like actuators and stuff like that, which mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, everyone design at the lowest hardware level. And then you go up, and then you have like the decision making process, where you need like actual ML engineers and and people who can write full stack code as well.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, of course, yeah. And then you go, because if you want to design a human interaction with that, then you need some sort of an app, or you need some sort of interface, which brings you back to the need for a full stack, right?
Right,
And
right.
then if you go back to the perception side, yeah, you need you need computer vision, and you need not just computer vision. There's all these different sensing modalities that you need to perceive the world around you.
Right, sir. So okay, so one final piece of advice which you had to give all of us in the meeting, I mean in the live session, what would be your final advice to all of us from resume point of view, from technical point of view, from an applicant point of view, all points of view?
I think you should not crowd towards places which are saturated just because a lot of people are crowding towards that, right? You should look at being the king of the hill somewhere, or the queen of the hill somewhere,
Right,
right? And find your hill, and then get on top of that. Because otherwise it's just a rat race, and that rat race doesn't get anyone anything anywhere. I mean, you can your net impact on humanity or on the world through the work that you do will be very diluted, I feel.
right, sir. So we would like to thank you so much for coming here, taking time off your busy schedule, and talking to all of us. We had a really, really good time speaking to you, and thank you once again. I'd like to point out our hackathon is on 9th and 10th of April. If you haven't already registered, register. The links are below. If you've registered and not made your teams, tomorrow is the last date for your ideation phase. Also, stay tuned for more sessions. We'll have more giveaways soon, and we'll be announcing the winner shortly on our Instagram pages as well. So, thank you so much. And we have one short video which we'll play, and then we'll end this live session. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you.